was 71 when my niece tried to erase me. Not kill me, not hurt me. Something worse. She tried to make the world believe I had already stopped existing. She almost succeeded. My name is Marianne Doyle, and for 46 years I worked as a nurse in a city that swallowed people whole. I held hands as patients died, held families as they cried, and held my breath every time I opened a medical bill for my late husband. Life had been unkind, but it had also been mine. My niece, Alyssa, was the daughter I never had. Pretty, polished, always smelling faintly of expensive perfume and ambition. She used to braid my hair when she was little. She used to call me Aunt Mary. She used to say I was the only person who ever made her feel safe. Funny how people change. It started small the way betrayals always do. A missing insurance letter. A bank notification I never received. A credit card I didn't open showing up in my name. But I was old, and when old people say papers disappear, no one listens. They blame age like it's a disease. Then one day the mailman knocked on my door. "Are you, Marianne Doyle?" he asked, hesitating. I blinked. "Yes, of course I am." He frowned at the envelope in his hand. "This says, estate of. That usually means the person is dead." I finished, my voice flat. He flushed. "I'm sorry, must be an error." "No, not an error. A warning." Someone had filed paperwork declaring me mentally incompetent. Someone was requesting control of my finances to prevent self-harm and irresponsible decision-making. Someone had attached forged doctor's notes, claiming I couldn't live alone. Someone had blocked access to my accounts. Someone was Alyssa. That night I confronted her. She arrived wearing a designer coat and carrying a tiny purse that probably cost more than my first car. She kissed my cheek with fake concern. "Oh, Aunt Mary, you look exhausted. Are you eating well? Did you take your pills?" "I'm fine," I said. "Tell me why you're trying to take my life from me." Her smile froze for a moment. Just a flicker. Then she laughed lightly. "Aunt Mary, what are you talking about? You must be confused." "I'm not confused," I said sharply. "You filed for guardianship." She blinked slowly, then exhaled through her nose. "You weren't supposed to find out yet." There it was. The truth, delivered like a knife pushed through butter. "Why?" I asked. Her expression changed, not cruel, not angry, but coldly practical. "Because you're alone. You're old. And you have a house in a neighborhood that's worth a fortune. The taxes will kill you. I'm helping you. You're stealing from me." She tilted her head thoughtfully. "I'm reallocating resources." For a moment I felt dizzy, not from age, not from illness, but from the sheer audacity. "You want my house. I want security," she said simply. "And you can't live here forever. It's too big, too dangerous. You'll fall. You'll forget the stove. You'll wander outside and get lost. When that happens, everyone will ask why I didn't act sooner. This is me acting. You forged documents. No one will believe you," she said sweetly. "They'll say it's dementia, or stress, or grief, or trauma. People always believe those things about old women." Her smile widened. "You're invisible, Aunt Mary. I'm just using that." She thought that was the end of it. She didn't know I was not the kind of old woman you erase. I had worked emergency rooms where men twice my size screamed in my face. I had performed CPR on bodies already cooling. I had broken ribs trying to save lives that didn't want saving. I had that strength inside me, still the kind that doesn't disappear, only settles deeper into the bones. The next morning, I went to the bank. My accounts were locked. The manager asked me to bring my caretaker. Caretaker. As if I were a dying plant. Then I went to my doctor's office. They said I had requested my own medical files be sealed. I hadn't. Then I went to the courthouse. The clerk looked at me with pity. "You poor thing," she said. "Your niece said you get confused easily. We'll call her to come get you." I walked out before she could finish. Alyssa's trap was almost airtight. Paperwork, signatures, digital forms, she'd been preparing this for months. She was using my age as a weapon, my quietness as leverage, my kindness as a weakness. But she made one mistake. She assumed I was alone. I knew someone she didn't. Someone whose number I never deleted. Someone I had taken a bullet for. Decades ago, when a patient's son tried to attack a nurse. His name was Ernest Briggs, a retired police lieutenant, a stubborn, blunt bulldog of a man, and someone who hated injustice more than I hated my niece that moment. When I called him, his voice rasped with disbelief. "Mary, you're alive." "Barely," I said. "My niece is trying to bury me on paper." There was a silence, a dangerous one. Then, "Give me 10 minutes. He arrived in 6. Ernest was older, now stooped, broader around the middle, walking with a cane that looked like it had knocked men unconscious before. But the eyes were the same, sharp, unblinking, loyal to the death. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. He listened, fully, quietly, until the rage grew so visible it looked like smoke behind his eyes. "She messed with the wrong woman," he said finally. "Paper trails can be burned, evidence can be found, and little princesses like your niece fold when someone stronger pushes back. But Ernest," I said softly, "she's family." He leaned in, voice low. "She stopped being family when she declared you dead." I closed my eyes, just for a moment, to gather myself. "What do we do?" I asked. Ernest straightened with a grunt. "We teach your niece a lesson she'll never forget," he growled, "and we make sure the world remembers you're very much alive." Then he smiled a slow, dangerous smile. "Let's start with the lawyer she forged." And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something warm spread through my chest. Hope. Rough, angry hope. The kind that tastes like revenge. Ernest didn't waste time. He marched into my living room like he still had a badge pinned somewhere under his coat, dropped a file onto my coffee table, and said, "We're going to break your niece's little empire from the inside out." Empire. The word stung, but he wasn't wrong. Alyssa had built something not with guns or threats, but with paperwork, charm, digital manipulation, and the soft violence people commit against the elderly while smiling. I sat across from him on my floral couch, hands wrapped around a mug of cold tea. "Where do we start?" I asked. He tapped the file. "With the lawyer who signed your medical evaluations." "My doctor didn't sign those," I said. "I know," Ernest replied. "I spoke to him on the phone. He nearly had a stroke when I told him someone had filed a cognitive decline report in his name." I felt my breath catch. Alyssa had forged my doctor's signature too. "How deep did she go?" I whispered. "You don't want to know," Ernest said. "But I'll tell you anyway." He opened the folder. Inside were printed screenshots, copies of digital transfers, lists of transactions from accounts I didn't recognize. "Your niece created a shell company," he explained. "A fake elder care foundation registered under your name. Then she used it to justify transferring your money for your protection." I felt sick. She was laundering my own money through me? Exactly. And the court believed it? "Courts don't check everything," Ernest snorted. "They check boxes. And your niece checked every box with confidence." I pressed a trembling hand to my forehead. "She did all of this behind my back," I murmured. "Right under my nose." Ernest leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "She didn't think you'd ever fight back," he said gently. "She thought you were old, tired, harmless." I let out a breathy, humorless laugh. "Then she forgot who raised her," I said. "That's the spirit," Ernest growled. That evening, we drove to the lawyer's office. I thought we were going to meet him. I was wrong. We watched from across the street as the young attorney Alyssa hired strode out of his building, sharp suit, hair perfectly gelled, talking loudly on the phone about a big guardianship win he expected to finalize next week. Ernest's eyes narrowed. "There he is." "What do we do?" I asked. "Watch." We followed him, not close enough to notice us, but close enough to keep him in frame. He walked into a trendy bar filled with people half his age, ordered a drink that cost more than my weekly groceries, and started flirting with a woman at the counter. "Alyssa knew exactly who to hire," Ernest muttered. "These young lawyers love guardianship cases. Easy money, easy signatures, Easy victims. So he's part of it? Willing part, Ernest said. But not smart, that's the difference. We waited until the woman left, until the lawyer's second drink emptied, until he stepped outside into the alley to check his phone. Then Ernest approached him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't make threats. He simply said, "You filed a fraudulent guardianship request for Marianne Doyle." The lawyer froze, phone in hand. Then he smirked. "You're mistaken." "No," Ernest said calmly. "You are." He slid something into the lawyer's pocket, a small flash drive. "Inside that," he said, "is every discrepancy in your case file. Every forged signature. Every false medical report you submitted. Every recording from your last 3 calls with Alyssa. Every photo of you signing documents in her apartment." The lawyer swallowed. "You're bluffing." Ernest smiled. "Open it and see." The lawyer slipped the drive out and looked at it like it was a snake coiled in his palm. "What do you want?" he whispered. Ernest pointed at me. "You're going to retract the petition. You're going to file a correction declaring the documents invalid, and you're going to do it before 8 a.m. tomorrow. And if I don't?" Now Ernest stepped closer, so close their noses almost touched. "You're too young to lose your license," he murmured, "and far too pretty for prison." The lawyer's face drained of color. "I'll file it," he said quickly. "Tonight." "Good boy," Ernest said, patting his shoulder as if he were a misbehaving student. We walked away, leaving the lawyer shaking behind the bar. I turned to Ernest. "You blackmailed him." He shrugged. "Not really. I just told him the truth in a way that made him listen." "But you gave him real evidence?" He gave me a sideways glance. "Mary." "I didn't have to. He believed I did." Fear fills in the blanks. I stared at him for a long moment. "You haven't changed," I said quietly. He smiled faintly. "Neither have you." The next morning, I went to the courthouse. The clerk who had patronized me earlier practically tripped over herself when she saw me. "Oh, Mrs. Doyle, I just saw an update. Your petition was withdrawn. There must have been some administrative mix-up." "Yes," I said softly. "A mix-up." She cleared her throat. "And, you're fully authorized to access your accounts again." "Thank you." I walked out with a steady stride. But it wasn't over. Not even close. Alyssa had done more than steal money. She had tried to steal my identity, my autonomy, my dignity. The law could erase her paperwork, but I wanted her to feel what I had felt. Lost, powerless, cornered. Ernest stepped out from behind a column, falling in beside me. "Well?" he asked. "She's not done yet," I said. "She'll come at me again." "Of course she will. People like her always double down." Then we hit back harder. He raised an eyebrow. "Harder how?" I looked up at him, letting the mask of the gentle old nurse slip just a bit. "Alyssa wants control? Let's show her what control really looks like." For the first time since he arrived at my door, Ernest's expression changed. Not fear, not shock, but respect. Dangerous respect. "What do you have in mind?" he asked. I smiled. And in that smile was a lifetime of quiet strength finally sharpening into something lethal. "Let's take away the one thing she cares about," I said. "Her money?" "No." I shook my head slowly. "Her reputation." "Reputation. It sounds like a soft word, doesn't it? Like gossip, brunch tables, whispered judgments. But for someone like Alyssa, reputation is oxygen. It's currency. It's the mirror she needs more than air. Take that away, and she wouldn't just break, she would implode." Ernest understood immediately. "Her reputation," he repeated, almost tasting the idea. "That'll hurt her worse than prison. It'll hurt her worse than losing money," I added. He grinned slow, wolfish. "My kind of plan." The next step was simple. We had to know exactly what Alyssa feared, so we followed her. Not with binoculars or hiding in bushes, no. We followed her the way people forget others can follow them, online. Her world was curated like a museum display. Instagram full of rooftop brunches, wine tastings, photos next to cars she didn't own. LinkedIn full of buzzwords and exaggerated titles, Facebook full of smiling selfies with friends she barely knew, a life built out of angles and filters, a life that would collapse if anyone saw the cracks. And oh, there were cracks. Ernest found them first. "Look at this," he said, sliding his laptop toward me. Alyssa had posted in a private professional group, "Grateful to be my aunt's guardian now. She's struggled for years, but I'm giving her stability and protection. It's hard, but I'm doing my best." I stared at the screen. She wrote this before filing anything. "Exactly," Ernest said. She was setting the stage, manipulating sympathy, harvesting it, he corrected. We scrolled deeper. Everywhere she painted herself as the exhausted, heroic young woman caring for a fragile old aunt who was losing her mind. The comments flooded in. "You're amazing. She's lucky to have you. It takes a special person to be a caregiver. You're an angel. We need more people like you." I felt something cold twist inside me. She wasn't just stealing from me. She was using me, as a prop, as a pity token, as her moral resume. Ernest slammed the laptop shut. "I've dealt with murderers, thieves, and liars," he growled. "But this kind of manipulation? This is the kind that makes my blood boil. Mine, too. We needed more vulnerability, more dirt." So we watched her offline. Alyssa worked at a real estate firm, a sleek glass building downtown that smelled like perfume and ambition. We arrived at lunchtime. We sat in a cafe across the street, Ernest with his black coffee, me with herbal tea. She came out in a navy dress, heels clicking, laughing with two coworkers. Her laugh, high and bright, was the kind you use when you want people to hear it. "She's networking," I muttered. "She's performing," Ernest corrected. They walked to a restaurant with outdoor seating. "Not a cheap one. She's living beyond her means," he said. I watched as she handed her black card to the waiter with a flourish. "It's not even hers," I whispered. "She used my accounts, my savings, my retirement. Then let's take those toys away." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" He grinned. "We're going to let her world know the truth, but not loudly, quietly. So quietly they'll wonder if they discovered it themselves." He picked up his phone. "Who are you calling?" I asked. He winked. "A friend in accounting." That evening everything began. A polite email went out from an anonymous source to her firm's HR department. "There are discrepancies in employee Alyssa Doyle's financial disclosures. You may want to review recent large incoming and outgoing transfers." The kind of message that smells like a lawsuit waiting to happen. Then we sent another to her mortgage broker, then to her bank's fraud division, then to a local journalist who specialized in financial exploitation cases. Not accusations, not threats, just questions. Questions are far more dangerous than answers. The next morning, Alyssa called me. Her voice was strained, irritated, a tone she had never used with me before. "Aunt Mary," she snapped. "Did you do something to your bank accounts?" "No," I said calmly. "Because they froze my transfers." "Your transfers?" I repeated. She hesitated. "Only a fraction of a second, but it was enough. You should have asked," I said softly, before using my name. "Aunt Mary, listen, something weird is happening. Someone is spreading lies." I lowered my voice. "Are you sure they're lies?" Silence. A thick, heavy silence. "You're making a mistake," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm correcting one." She hung up. Ernest exhaled. "Now she's scared." "Not enough," I said. Agreed. By noon the cracks widened. A coworker of hers posted publicly about ethics concerns within the team. A realtor she frequently collaborated with unfollowed her on every platform. Her mortgage broker called her, asking for updated documents. Her boss scheduled a performance meeting. Her world, so carefully constructed, began to wobble. Ernest watched with satisfaction. "She built her life on sand," he said. "All we had to do was let the tide in." But I wasn't satisfied yet. She still had her confidence, her charm, her ability to twist a story. I wanted something she couldn't spin, something undeniable, something she would feel in her bones. "Ernest," I said slowly, "we need proof." "Proof of what?" That she targeted me, I said. That she forged documents. That she manipulated the system. He shook his head. She's too careful. No, I said. She's proud. Pride makes people sloppy. And I was right, because Alyssa kept everything on her laptop. I knew this because she once bragged about how she backed up her whole life like a CEO. Ernest sat forward. You're thinking of getting into her computer? Yes. Mary. That's illegal. So is everything she did, I said. He paused, then grinned. Fair enough. The opportunity came faster than expected. 2 days later, her firm held a mandatory corporate training session. Phones had to be off. Laptops had to stay at desks. We arrived at the office disguised as a frail aunt and her kindly caretaker. The receptionist, young and bored, barely glanced up. We're here to drop off something Alyssa forgot, Ernest said, waving a gift bag. Oh, she's in a meeting right now, the receptionist replied. I can take it. Ernest put on his pitying smile. I promised her I'd leave it at her desk, he said softly. She gets nervous when I don't follow instructions. The receptionist hesitated, half annoyed, half sympathetic. Fine, but be quick. We followed her into the glass maze of offices. Alyssa's desk was immaculate. White monitor, gold pen holder, coffee cup with a motivational quote, laptop closed. Ernest positioned himself between me and the hallway. 3 minutes, he whispered. I nodded, sat down, powered on her laptop, password prompt. I typed the obvious, her birthday, her dog's name, her initials, no luck. Then I typed her favorite word. She had used it since she was 12. Perfect. The screen unlocked. Ernest's eyebrows shot up. She used perfect? Of course she did. I started digging. Her documents, templates for guardianship petitions, draft letters to judges, fake medical notes with my forged signature, email threads where she bragged about getting full control soon. My hands shook, not with fear, with anger so pure it felt electric. Then I found the final piece. A scanned PDF titled Emergency Transfer M. Doyle Residence. It authorized the sale of my house. She had planned to institutionalize me and sell my home within a week. We downloaded everything to a drive, shut down the laptop, placed the fake forgotten item on her chair, walked out with calm, steady steps. Once we exited the building, Ernest let out a low whistle. You think she'll realize something's missing? Eventually, I said, but by then it won't matter. Why? I looked up at him. Because now we have the truth. He nodded. And truth is a blade. No, I corrected softly. Truth is gasoline. And what are we? He asked. I smiled. The match. Alyssa didn't notice the intrusion immediately. People like her never do. They assume the world cooperates with their illusions. But 3 days later she called me. Not angry, not smug, panicked. Someone hacked my files, she blurted. My boss wants a meeting. HR called. My accounts are frozen again. I swear I didn't touch anything. I let silence answer her. Aunt Mary. Her voice shook. Did you do something? Yes, I said. Silence again. A deadly kind. What? Exactly? I stopped pretending you were family, I replied. Her breathing hitched. She wasn't ready for that sentence. Not from me, the quiet aunt, the harmless old nurse. You don't understand, she rushed. Everything I did to help you. No, I interrupted. You did it to help yourself. I wasn't going to let anything happen to you. You already did, I said. She inhaled sharply. That's not fair. You don't know how hard I worked. I do, I said calmly. I saw the files. Silence. Cold. Absolute. Paralyzing. What files? She whispered, dread thick in her throat. The forged medical reports. The guardianship drafts. The transfer papers for my home. I heard her knees hit the floor, not physically, but emotionally. Aunt Mary, please. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing. You're going to ruin me. No, I said. You ruined yourself. I hung up. She called back 10 times. I didn't answer once. The next morning, Ernest and I sat in the diner across from her office building. He drank black coffee. I sipped chamomile tea. And we watched Alyssa walk inside. Her steps were uneven, her shoulders tight. She clutched her purse like a lifeline. She had makeup on too much, the kind women wear when they want to hide panic. She's unraveling, Ernest observed. She hasn't even begun, I said. He smirked. You always had that look, the calm before the storm look. I didn't answer, because inside that office, the storm was already breaking. At noon, her boss emerged and approached the front desk. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed, a fate worse than fury for people like Alyssa. Then HR walked by, 2 of them, then the compliance officer, then the mortgage broker, then a detective in plain clothes. Ernest let out a low whistle. That's a lot of suits for one little liar. She lied to all the wrong people, I said simply. After 40 minutes, Alyssa's boss returned to his office alone. Alyssa did not follow him. She stumbled out of the building instead, pale, shaky, her blazer slipping off one shoulder. She looked up and saw me through the diner window. Our eyes met. For the first time in her adult life, she looked like a child again. Lost, confused, caught. I stood. Ernest touched my arm. You sure? Yes. I walked outside. Alyssa ran to me. Aunt Mary, please just listen, please. She reached for my hands. I didn't give them. Tell me, I said quietly, what you told them. Her voice cracked. They confronted me with everything. The documents, the signatures, the bank transfers, the fake emails, the guardianship request. They said someone sent them anonymously, but I know it was you. Yes, I tried to explain. And they didn't believe me. Because you lied. No, because it sounded. She broke off, tears flooding. It sounded too calculated, too planned. Because it was. She trembled from head to toe. My reputation is gone, she whispered. They're firing me. I might get charged. I could lose everything. You'd think I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. I felt accurate. This wasn't pleasure. This was correction. You should have thought of that before you tried to erase me, I said. She sagged. I didn't want to hurt you, she sobbed. You wanted my house. She covered her face. Aunt Mary, I was drowning in debt. I couldn't afford rent. I thought, if I controlled your estate, I could stabilize myself, just until I got back on my feet. You chose theft, I said. I chose survival. So did I. She froze at that. Maybe for the first time, she saw me, not Aunt Mary, not old, not fragile, but a woman who had lived long enough to stop accepting cruelty as circumstance. Aunt Mary, she whispered, voice breaking, please, I'm begging you, don't let them destroy me. I'm not destroying you, but everything's falling apart. You built everything on lies, I said. It was already falling. She shook her head helplessly. What do you want? She whispered finally. What will make you stop? I took a long breath. 3 things. She looked terrified. First, I said, I want every dollar you took from me returned. She nodded quickly. Yes, of course I'll find a way. Second, I continued, you will withdraw every guardianship petition, every transfer request, every fabricated document, and you will do it publicly. She bit her lip hard enough to bleed. And third, her breath caught. You will leave me alone. She stared. That's it? She whispered. That's everything. She collapsed forward and hugged me. I didn't hug her back. After a long moment, she pulled away. She stood trembling, mascara streaking her cheeks. I'm sorry, she said in a voice so small it nearly vanished in the wind. You needed to learn, I replied, and I needed to teach. She nodded. Numb, broken, human. Then she left, not gracefully, not proudly, but quietly, the only way people leave when truth strips them bare. Ernest joined me on the sidewalk. Well? He asked. It's done, I said. In your heart too? I looked at the sky, feeling the crackling weight of the last week settle into something softer. Yes, I said. He nodded once. We walked back to the diner. When we reached the door, he paused. You didn't destroy her, he said. No, you could have. I know. You chose mercy. I looked at him. No, I corrected. I chose precision. He grinned. That's why I always liked you. That night I sat in my living room, my own living room, paid for, protected, mine. The air felt new, fresh, honest. I brewed tea, pulled a blanket over my knees, listened to the city outside my window breathe. I was an old woman, yes, but not a powerless one, not a confused one, not one fading into the background of other people's ambitions. Age doesn't erase strength, it refines it, and sometimes, just sometimes, it sharpens it into a blade. Alyssa learned that, the world learned that, and I learned something too. You can forgive, but you must never forget, because forgetting is how you get erased, and I plan to live a very long, very visible life.